Welcome back to My Hero Academia Anime Review Episode 78. This is reviewing the 102nd episode of the anime, which is called Off to Endeavor's Agency. I forgot to open the damn thing. Yeah, Off to Endeavor's Agency. Yes, I'm also going to cover the 319 chapter of the manga. Yeah. This episode covers 5 pages of chapter 131. Yeah, it covers pages 2 through 6. And it also covers chapters 243, 244, and the first 13 out of 17 pages for chapter 245. Now, in case you're curious, though, what are they adapt from the sequence for? What are they from 130 from 231? It was mostly a flashback sequence in the manga of exactly what happened with Genist, where you have Hawk just sitting on a rooftop, and then he goes to visit Best Genist, who actually is in hiding, and we also see that after chatting with him, he then proceeds to pull out a feather, do something bad to him. It's very heavily implied that he actually killed him in order to gain the trust of the League of Villains, or at least the Meta Liberation Army, which is first mentioned in the episode. Then he goes off after, well, they do show off later on that he basically goes to a headquarters of the Meta Liberation Army, meets up with Slide, who apparently is one of the heroes who defected to the Meta Liberation Army, and we can see the anime debut of the character Snitch. Now, I looked up his voice actor, and you are not going to believe who voices him. The guy who voices him is the guy who voices Sai from Naruto. Yes. Well, who voiced him Naruto Shippuden and still voice him, and Boruto Naruto Next Generation. Yeah, it's Sai's voice actor, which, that's a bit surprising. I did not expect, basically, where this series gets another Viz Media, apparently Funimation is just grabbing Viz Media actors, apparently, because first it's Johnny M. Bosch, now it's this guy. Yeah, the guy who voices him is a guy by the name of Benjamin, what is his last name here? Benjamin Diskin. He is also the voice of not only Sai from the Naruto franchise, he's also in Bleach as Abel Ritter. He's also in Civil Watch. He's also the voice of Bon from Seven Deadly Sins. He's also the voice of Joseph Joestar from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He's in Blue Exorcist, voicing Kenzo Shima. Nekobyne from Hunter x Hunter. And, well, that's it. Basically a small handful of characters that he's voiced, but that's basically what he does. He's also, believe it or not, actually an American series. Oh yeah, he is. He is also he's in the 2019 he's in the 2017 version of the Marvel Spider-Man anime. Yeah, the one that aired for a couple years. I don't think it's still on the air, but it's been on the air now since 2017. I heard it's a lot. I've watched the first couple episodes of it. It's a lot better than Ultimate Spider-Man. Yes. Oh yeah, in case you're curious, though, who does the voice on there? Flash Thompson, Spencer Smythe, Venom, and the Burglar. Yeah, that's who he voices on there. Yeah, he's also been on Ultimate Spider-Man and Hulk Age of Smash. He voiced Scar in that series. He's also been on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Young Justice. He's the voice of Maleflique. Yeah, he's John Jones' brother. So yeah, the guy has been in American animation too. So just like with Steve Bloom, he also does American animation. Yeah, we see him briefly in this scene, just chatting with Slide and of course Hawks. Now it's mentioned that Slide is actually older than he is. He's sort of a high-ranking position than Hawk, which, okay, that doesn't make much sense. Like, Slide himself basically is, even though he just showed up in the last episode, the guy doesn't do much of anything at all. That's the problem with the character. He does nothing. Actually, he showed up not last week episode. It was actually 2 episodes back he showed up. Yeah, he's practically useless superhero. I'm not really sure what's the purpose of this guy. And later on, we see, Well, we have on New Year's Eve, we see Deku celebrating New Year's with his mom, who was very happy to basically spend. It's explained that basically they're able to do this because they got a pro hero escorting him home for security reasons. So basically, his mom is very happy to see him. Of course, she's crying. Of course, she goes, "Please stop crying." Otherwise, so the family underneath them will think of a leak. And then she does more crying. But apparently, this is hilarious. Well, apparently, the tears are so big it runs out the freaking door, like out the balcony. I thought it was so hilarious. And then, of course, they got on the. He gets on the bus wearing a multicolored scarf. Looks very similar to the scarf that Tom Baker wore in Doctor Who. That's what it looks like in the anime. And he gets on the bus to Golf Endeavor Agency. And he, of course, shows in flashback that he did talk to All Might about this with Bakuto, who was the only kid there who actually knows about the secret of his power. Then, well, they arrive, and of course, well, then we have Endeavor basically being very polite, and of course, they do change a bit of his dialogue here, where he says basically, "I have to train you three." And in the manga, he says, "This is the warm reception I get." Wow. And of course, Deku is the most polite of all three of them. Of course, they also cut out the bit where Shudo asks Endeavor, "Don't give him like special treatment just because he's his dad." So yeah, and of course, Bakuto obviously points out though that Endeavor is a jerk, which yeah, that's definitely true. Even Bakuto agrees with even Shudo agrees with that. And of course, Deku is very polite to him. He says to be on a chain with him. And he later has a callback to the sports festival from season 2, where he says that Shudo was not him. You said that, and Deku agrees. He did say that. And then then he starts burning out part of his coat. You're probably thinking, why is he doing that for? Well, because this strange old man shows up. Yes. Now you're probably thinking, who the heck is this guy? Star Servant. Oh yeah, by the way, Eri gets a brief mention this episode. Yeah, Star Servant does not have. There's no credit exactly of who actually voices him. I think he just appears in like one chapter. Yeah, I think he just appears in like 2 chapters, and that's. I think he appears like one or chapter. Yeah, that's the thing. He appears in like. Yeah, he appears in like one other chapter, and that's it. He's a very minor character. Oh, the thing with Eri, that actually is the result of a letter that Deku got from her. Yeah, that was actually based upon a sketch that was shown in the actual, like, that was put in these books themselves. And they put it in the anime as an actual sequence. I was kind of surprised they put that in last week. And there it is. And of course, she got the letter. Of course, he's very happy to get. So I think they got a letter from someone at Low Kitty knows. This time, an adorable little girl. Now, of course, they go see this guy called Starseer, who was like an independent villain, who basically absorbs glass with his ability, and then basically Endeavor chases him down after breaking one of his glass orbs, giant glass one, and of course Hawk just happened to be nearby, and of course it's where Shudo uses ice, Deku and Bakuto don't get a chance to do much of anything, and of course, well, Endeavor takes down Starseeker, and Hawk swoops in, takes care of his henchmen. Of course, they live. Oh yeah, Starseer basically we were just under his orders, and of course he gets hauled off. The guy runs his mouth off and be near. Then right after that, basically Hawks basically gets a chance to chat with them. Of course, Deku just introduces himself, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're the kid who breaks his fingers." And he's like, "Oh, Tokiyama told me about you," which, yeah, at least Hawks got a chance to meet him, and Tokiyama told him about him, so I'm not surprised that he probably knew about him. But nice is the fact they have an introduction. I'm glad they kept this in. And basically, then he takes out a book. He says, "Have you read this book? This is Meta Liberation Army." Yeah, this actually is a tease for a later story arc. Yes. And he basically says, "Read the highlight sections, the second passage." And of course, like, oh, the cool book, promoted the book, and apparently he decided to give Shudo, Bakuto, and Deku copies of this book. And then they go off to Endeavor's agency, where Endeavor decides to just hang out in his very luxurious office. Like, wow, like, it's probably due to the money he gets from the government. Like, man, this is basically a penthouse office. I mean, he's got this nice carpet, this big desk. Of course, Endeavor is a big hulking guy, and of course, two big couches in his office with a table. I'm like, no wonder why he's rich. Yep. Of course, I think because his license work for the government, probably just gets against the paycheck. So if it was, oh yeah, there's actually a bunch of like calls going out, calling for heroes, and of course, well, then we have some of Endeavor's psychics introduce themselves to Bakuto, Shudo, and Deku, and Deku points out one of her name was Burnin. Yep, knows who he like. He says it in I think in the manga. I think he actually just well, how should I put this? He basically says it in his thoughts, and the anime says it out loud. And then the episode ends quite interestingly. While you have Endeavor reading through the book in the manga, it's not the book. The contents are not really shown in the actual book itself. It basically shows exactly like hints exactly what he's reading. Basically, what this is hinting at is not for the arc this anime skipped over to get this one. Oh no, this is teasing the arc that comes after this arc in the manga, which is, excuse me, the Paramount Liberation War, which comes right after this arc, and that is what this thing is teasing. The fact that it's going to happen in 4 months, and that's the very next arc that comes after this one. Now, I don't think they can cover that arc this season. I highly doubt it, due to the fact that, well, and this is my personal theory, because that arc is super long, and my guess is they're probably going to set up for season 6 of the show, presumably coming next year. Yep, and then the end of the episode right there, roughly halfway through the actual chapter of 245. That's where they end it, with only 4 pages left. So, from what I can tell, next episode will adapt the rest of this chapter and go straight to, like, almost 248, basically adapting, like, almost like, they can finish at 245, and that almost the entirety of, like, 2 full chapters. They skip our part of the next chapter. But I'll discuss more about that next week, when, of course, well, when the actual episode itself comes out, which I'm looking forward to that. Alright, next up is chapter 319, called Friend. Chapter starts off in the UA dorm. We first see Ingenium, Ochaku, Shudo, Tokiomi, and Bakuto. Well, they're all worried about, well, and of course you have Deku, you have Bakuto ripping up Deku's letter, and of course everybody's basically there. So they basically chat for a while. Apparently, they say that well, Hawks and Genius are not answering their phone, and along with, well, basically Top the Heroes answer the phone. Somebody's appears off. All by its MA, and they say the class has been suspended, and that we're kept as first years for now. I would think they would have finished as first years by now, especially at this point of the series. They got each of us in the hero course either cooped up in dorms or helping out the local security. Given the state of things, it's tough to find if things are out there. So basically, Deku mentions Bakuto mentions they're going to happen in the hospital, and they need to do something about it. It's like they get the worst thing because, well, he left. And then we have Ochaku chiming in. Like, of course, everybody's wondering how you're going to touch them. Endeavor's and UA alum, right? Let's force the issue. And a few days later, they come to Principal's office with Endeavor there, and of course, Principal, this was a trap? Yep. And he's like, I heard the children out in the tournament that this meeting was warranted. I'm always open to change based on facts. And of course, Shudo opens with asks the obvious question: "Why have you ignored me? I thought we were going to help stop Toya together." Shudo, your willingness alone means the world to me. And of course, Shudo chimes in: "Well, it doesn't mean much to me without action. Why is Midori the only one with a free pass?" Endeavor, you're letting Deku and All Might operate together, aren't you? That's so. Any other solution, right move. And then, of course, Bakudo steps in. You don't know the first thing about Bakudo. You screw up in the head. He never takes himself into account. He says crap like, I'm fine. The All Might became so peace with the same mindset, so he wouldn't be the one who stopped Deku. He says, listen, we can't leave those two alone with each other, not them. Same speed. But, yo, this thing of GPS tracking. And, of course, like, everybody's, like, jumping at a thing. Mind if we borrow this, sir? Because there's only a chance we won't have the same class as the guy. But still, I feel the same way. We will spend a year together, but it's plenty. Then Shudo basically chimes back in. He never opened to us about Off One, and he expected a letter, but his ease came shock to us. And then Genium, we're Class A, intended to find him, follow him, work alongside him. No matter what great burden Off One may be, Midori is our friend, and we can't very expect to go smiling in the future, knowing our friend is walking his own path alone. And of course, it was like too dangerous. And then the principal compliments Shudo, says, "You surely matured." Given the villains pursuing him, he wished to lead UA and authorize team up. However, he's free to return us any time. Huh? Well, he is student accepted to school under full protection. And then we see it looks like Ochako with a flashback with possibly your sister, whatever. And of course, Deborah's like, what about safety of the evacuees? Among them, there is still a power evacuation shelter. Must be more than enough, simply a plow of land that should remove somehow. It's like the scary system was fortified for the school festival, though it has yet to see any use. I'm talking about the UA barrier. It will prove its worth. In that case, All Might attended the school, you know. So, go on. Do what's bringing it back to us. And then we cut back to the end of the last chapter where Bakudo saves Deku. And we see Crazy basically just securing everybody. And of course, well, Bakudo basically, he says, great explosion, murder god. Democrat, what? That apparently that's too long of a name. Of course, everyone's like, free. Everyone. He's like, everyone, why? We were worried about you, but I'm fine. Don't worry, get away from me. And of course, Bakudo says, what a real inspiration. All Might, the mighty inheritor. All hail the mighty inheritor one for all. But tell us this. Are you smiling now? Those smiles, everyone's peace of mind. Those are the reason to keep coming, so get out of my way. And of course, Bakudo says, do you worse, wannabe, and Genium. We know Midori will be the same as ever, strong. And of course, Ochako is the last one saying, she says, yeah, she agrees that, like, wow. 3 people were really close to Deku, and that's who we end on. Wow, that's quite cool. And I can't wait for the next chapter. I would be surprised, though, if somehow, like, one thing I really hope that kind of happens either in the next chapter or 2 is that maybe Ochako might confess to Deku in order to get him to calm down. Or maybe just play a kiss on him. That would be something. Because it's been hinted that Deku's got a thing for her too, so why not? Yep, so yeah, that's it for Good View. Next one's going to be One Piece, then Boruto, and that's it for today. Well, actually, it'll be like a Doctor Who one, okay? Next video. Bye.